Hi everyone, Gautam aka the Seeker of Wisdom. I'm a manifestation coach, and in this video, we're going to be talking a little bit about a success story from a friend of mine as well as a success story from me. Both are very similar stories, so I wanted to, talk about those two stories, which are, long-term success stories. So these two stories happened over a span of 9 months. So I really want to kind of break it down and kind of explain to you guys what the process was here. So before I do so, I'd like to remind you guys I am available for coaching. So I offer hourly, monthly, email, and DM coaching along with premium coaching right now, which is basically unlimited calls and unlimited DMs. So I will have an access to a FAQ page in my description down below where you guys will have all the answers you need, and after you guys can reach out to me via Instagram or email for pricing information and to figure out which plan may be suitable for you. I also have a Facebook group where I upload resources from time to time, as well as you guys can ask me questions anonymously if you wish to do so. I also have a mailing list where I post articles from time to time, as well as my latest offers for coaching. And last but not least, this is brand new. I have a Manifest Your SP bundle instead of my courses. So basically, what I did was I combined the Manifest Your SP course and the third party course, right? And I also added 2 months of DMs, direct messaging support in a platform of your choice, normally WhatsApp or Instagram. Along with that, I've also added like 4 1 hour calls in this bundle as well. So the rationale for this was folks have been who have been using the course also booked DMs with me and also booked calls with me as well to kind of discuss about their manifestation journey and everything. So because this course was meant to be a long term course, right? So they wanted to kind of do the course at the same time, get input from me, and also have that support as well. So I decided, what, let's do this thing where I'm going to be adding DMs and calls along with the course itself, so make it one big bundle. Because one thing that a lot of people were kind of telling me was like they didn't know which plan to choose if they are manifesting an SP, whether to go for the DMs or for this, because there was pros and cons for both type of thing. So I decided to combine all those into a big bundle now, and that is what I'm offering right now. So for my latest course offers and whatnot, I will be posting it in the community tab, so make sure that you guys are on the lookout for that. So if you guys have any questions on that, guys, email me or DM me on my Instagram, and I'll be more than happy to share with you any relevant details. So without further ado, guys, let's get to it. So for the success story, this is from a friend of mine, and her name is Josephine. So I know her from Instagram, and she is a jeeper. So she posts her adventures and whatnot. It's really cool. It's one of my lesser known interests. I love off-road cars, so I love seeing the content from her account and whatnot. I really enjoy that. So recently she posted a Instagram stories or multiple Instagram stories where she explained how she entered a event, and I really thought it was a cool success story that you guys would really benefit from. And I asked her, hey, would you mind if I share it on my YouTube channel, because I really feel like it could inspire a lot of folks out there. And she was more than happy to share it with you guys. So without further ado, I'm going to let her speak, and so I'll catch you guys after this.
I have a confession to tell you guys. This is why I share on my stories all the time and just in daily life that I am the luckiest and most spoiled person that I know. The whole time that I was talking about going to Jeep Jamboree, Colorado, I actually didn't even have a spot. Sign-ups for Jeep Jamboree, if you guys know, is always in December. Events happen all around the country, all around the year. Sign-ups are always in December, and when I tried to sign up for the one in Colorado, it was sold out in 30 seconds, so I didn't even have a spot. That gave me a lot of anxiety leading up to September, because I was thinking, what am I gonna do if I don't even have a spot? But this whole year, 9 months exactly, I kept putting it out into the universe. I kept claiming that I was going to be at Jeep Jamboree in Colorado in September. I even told people, hey, I'm not gonna be in town for this week. Told work, told my family, I'm gonna be in Colorado for this specific week. Didn't even have a spot the day that I was supposed to leave to Colorado. I heard that people cancel travel plans all the time, so there has to be someone that was going to cancel. And Jeep Jamboree has a very specific set of rules how they do things. Like, you have to cancel by this date, you can sign up for a wait list spot by this date. I drove 19 hours to get there, including 4 hours spent sleeping in my Jeep. When I got there a little bit earlier than the event started, we did a bunch of trails that we wanted to do, like all of the Jeep Badge of Honor trails. The day that was designated to check in to the Jeep Jamboree and then sign up for trails for all the people that paid to be there, not me. We were on Engineer Pass, and the whole time on Engineer Pass, I was so nervous, not because of the trail, but because I was rehearsing in my head what I was going to say when I saw the Jeep Jamboree people to beg them for a spot. Engineer Pass, I kept thinking in my head that I know Jeep Jamboree has a very strict set of rules on how they like to do things, but, and I said this out loud, but I am always the exception to the rule. 90% of me believe that because I was really, really nervous. Then I also made up this imaginary scenario in my head that maybe some guy signed up originally for this event and he last minute couldn't make it. And so I said out loud, I don't even care if I have to wear a man's name tag. I will wear it because we all get our own name tags for being a participant at all Jeep Jamborees. When I tell you, I was so scared to show up. So I show up, right? I recognize some people from previous Jeep Jamboree Moabs. They recognize me too because, hello, you don't forget a Gladdy girl. I forgot everything that I had rehearsed all day, and I just flat out asked them, can you just please tell me, because I don't have a spot, just tell me if someone canceled last minute or if I can add myself right now. I was begging. So-and-so had to talk to so-and-so, who also had to talk to so-and-so and get back to me. And I'm just sitting in my Jeep shaking and so nervous. I figured the worst thing they could do is laugh at my face and be like, you have definitely lost your mind, you know the rules, and no. And I had already done all the badge trails that I wanted to do. It was probably the longest 6 minutes of my life just waiting for a response. Fast forward, I got a spot and they were able to make me a name tag on the fly. And what's cool is, just as I had predicted, it was a man that could not show up. I took his name tag. They were able to put my name on it, but they had his city on it, not mine. And then they said, you know, we could probably white that out and write your hometown if you want to. I didn't want them to do that because I wanted to keep it as a reminder to myself that I am always the exception to the rule, and I am the luckiest and most spoiled person that I know.
So thank you, my friend. Thank you for sharing your story. I really appreciate you allowing me to share this. So welcome back, guys. As you heard from her, the whole thing happened over a span of 9 months. And before I break it down, I also want to share a success story of mine, as I mentioned earlier, simply to show you that this isn't just a one-off thing, that, you know, many people, you know, go through such similar things. And, you know, I also want to reiterate the power of speaking as if. Right? So I really want to kind of highlight the power of that, if anything, because I really want to show you guys, like even in Neville's story, right? Like when Abdullah kept re-emphasizing the fact that you're now in Barbados, right? Like, why did he say that, right? Like, because he kept, you know, speaking as if, so that is what will manifest, right? Like he assumed it so, you know, with a high level of conviction, right? He was so determined in it that it did came to pass, right? It did harden into fact. So I really want to kind of show that, right? And how, even if it takes a while, right? Because I often hear folks telling me like, hey, you know, I've done this for 2 months or 3 months, and it's like, I'm like, it's 90 days, like it's nothing, right? And I want to show you guys like what it takes sometimes, like even if it takes longer than that, like how a success story is still a success story nonetheless, right? So as you guys know, as some of you may know, I left school to pursue what I'm doing right now, right? It was a bold move. It was a huge step for me, especially coming from like an Asian culture, like a brown family, right? Like it was big. Like I'm not gonna lie, like that was something that, you know, it wasn't just an overnight decision. So a bit of context for that was, I finished my service in the military, and then I came to join an art school. So that once I joined in April of last year, and my business was like kind of picking up then. So for context, it wasn't as big, right? Like even my followers on Instagram wasn't as big, right? Like, so those of you who have been following me for over a year would know that. So it was really like things were starting to pick up, and this was something that manifesting and everything, I have been doing it since like 2018 on Instagram. So I was really kind of passionate about it, but things were starting to pick up at a pace where I did not kind of expect. So that was happening, and I remember the day when I stepped into school. I will never forget this day. It was the 19th of April, I believe. It felt like I stepped on a landmine, right? For context, there are a few other layers to this, which I can't get into for personal reasons, but essentially I wanted out, right? Like, and that was a decision that I strongly felt. But of course, like the ways and means weren't exactly presented to me, let's just say. So it wasn't like a, like a immediate decision. So I kind of took a maybe like 2 months max, right? Like I was speaking to friends and family about it, like, mostly loved ones. Like my family, like my parents didn't know about it, but my friends kind of did know about my decision somewhat. And I kind of, like went through with them, like, okay, what are my options, why would I want to do this? But of course the advice that expectedly many gave was stay in school, right? Because that's what, like, that's the safest option, that makes the most sense, obviously. And I was like, okay, cool. And I, on the other hand, I decided at one point, like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna leave. Like, I don't know how, I really don't know how, but I'm going to leave school. Like, that's just a decision that I made at the end of the day without consulting anyone. Sure, I spoke with my friends and loved ones and whatnot, but at the end of the day, the decision was up to me, and I took it. I took the shot. I took the leap of faith to even decide, right? So I decided, and I remember telling my friends, like, in school, I'm not going to be here for long. That's what I always tell them, right? Like, I'm not going to be here for long. And I'm gonna leave school. I'm gonna leave school, right? So even when my clients used to ask me that, I told them that, like, this is one thing, right? Like, my clients from last year have seen this entire journey. So they know what I went through and how I went through it, and they know how I actually spoke as if even before the event came to pass, right? So I'm glad, like, some of my clients got front row seats to this entire thing, because they kind of saw this entire thing like panning out, unfolding in front of their eyes. And I'm so grateful that some of them actually got to see it, because then it also boosts their confidence in this manifestation process as well, right? So a year, like almost a year, passes by. So from April, we are talking, like, goes to September, November. I'm still in school. I'm still doing all my assignments. I'm still going through coaching and creating content and all that stuff, right? And as the schools, the terms went by, the semesters went by, I'm actually doing pretty well, right? Like, if you saw my personal stories in my highlights and whatnot, like on Instagram, you will know, like, I was actually in the directors list and whatnot. So it was pretty good, right? Like, from a logical standpoint, like, from the outsider standpoint, like, it doesn't make any sense for me to leave school, right? But that's a decision that I made, and I didn't know how it was all going to pan out and how I was going to kind of justify it to my brown parents, like, because if you know how brown culture works, like, this is like the equivalent of dropping an atom bomb, right? Like, so this was a huge thing. But I kept persisting in that. I kept persisting in the idea that I'm not going to be here for long, and I always spoke as if there was no sign of a exit for me, right? I took it every single day. I kept telling myself it is temporary right now, regardless of what I see or I don't see. I know that this situation is temporary, and that if I persist, it has to happen. God shall not be mocked, right? So it kept going, and I always tell myself, like, I always get my way. Everything is always favorable for me. That's like my go-to affirmation. I don't know when or how. I know that this is already mine. And I always kind of come at it from that perspective, right? So I think it was like, I would say November-ish. I can't remember exactly when. It could be last year, October, or it could be November. But basically what happened was, my dad and I had a talk, right? Like, the picture of incidents just unfolded. And without, like, it was just in the spur of the moment, I just told him, like, I want to actually leave school. Like, I did not plan this. This was not, like, even planned ahead of time, or, like, it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to talk to my dad about this. Nothing, right? It just I just blurted it out. And he was like, wait, what? Like, oh, what's going on, type of thing, because to them it's new, not to me. And then from there came all the process to, I'm not sure if it was like November or it could be December. I'm not sure of the timelines are a little fuzzy, so forgive me on that. But essentially it was towards the end of the year, so I kind of started to see what the process was, right? Like, essentially I had a couple more months to clear school wise, because I just wanted to finish that one whole year. I didn't want to just leave it abruptly. So it was like a final lap sort of thing. I was like, okay, so I'm just going to take it. But at the same time, the process, the paperwork was already underway, right? So throughout that process, right, like I kept telling myself, okay, I'm not going to be here for long, this is a very temporary situation, I'm leaving this place. I kept like envisioning that, essentially, right? Like, I'm a free man, I always get what I desire with ease and things like that, right? So it kept happening. The things, bridge of incidents unfolded so perfectly that even I couldn't have foreseen that. But everything happened in such a way that everyone was kind of happy about the entire situation. So it really came down in a way that I did not expect, and was so smooth. And everything, like, I would say everything was so smooth, like there was no hindrances at all, right? But for the most part of my manifestation journey, when it came to that, like, I did not see anything, no movement at all, right? On a typical week at school, it's assignments, right? Because the thing with art school is you don't get assessed with exams like for other faculties and whatnot, right? Because our assignments are technically our exams, right? Like, there's no one exam within like in 2 weeks or something, right? Like, it's progressive, right? Like, you have to show your developments for a lot of these things and things like that. So it was very progressive. So there was always something to do and things like that. And the only comfort I had is me telling myself this is temporary, right? And me telling people as though it's an absolute fact. So what I did was to find joy in the little things. So by little things, I mean, like, okay, the canteen food, for example, was delicious, right? I loved it, right? Like the carbonara, the chicken, the curry, like I loved it, right? So I always look forward to lunch. Okay, so whenever I'm in campus, I look forward to lunch. Whenever there was a Zoom meeting or something like that, I'm like, okay, at least you're in the comfort of your home, right? You're good. So I always try to find things that I was grateful for. And I really, took that. And I also told myself to not take things too seriously, not let things get to my head, right? So if there's an assignment, or if there is a thing that has to be done, a group project or collaboration or anything of that sort, obviously I do what has to be done, but I always prioritize my peace and happiness. I was like, okay, never let that get to your head. Like, chill, because that was important for me. For someone who used to have anxiety and depression at one point, I had to, like, kind of give myself those like pep talks, and to kind of like lead myself, right? So I always prioritize my peace and happiness. Like, that took precedence over anything, right? If I wouldn't push myself too hard as well, like, I made sure I got sleep for the most part, right? And I ensured that nothing came at the expense of my mental health, right? I know that it's all going to be fine. This is just a temporary situation. It's all unfolding perfectly. And I always tell myself, like, every step that I'm taking towards the school, even now, is leading me to my desires, even though technically speaking the direction that I want to go is exactly opposite, like away from school, right? Like, that really, like, even looking back, like, I always tell myself, like, I'm so proud of myself for, like, persisting in that, because where I'm right now is where I wanted to be last year, and I'm so grateful for that. And all I did was to speak as if, right? Even the students would ask me, like, bro, when are you actually leaving? Like, it's almost going to be a year, right? Are you actually leaving? Like, and there were all these things. I was like, yeah, I'm leaving, right? I'm just like going with the flow, but I'm leaving for sure. And when that time came, no one was really kind of surprised in my class, in the sense that they knew it. It was like, of course, like, he was going to, he did say it, it's happening, type of thing, right? So it really came in a very smooth way. And this is what I say, like, to people, is that be patient. Be patient, right? In a era of, like, like TikTok, and, like, with, like, like 30 seconds of attention spans and whatnot, very short attention spans, right? It's so hard for people to kind of persist long term. But I think that's one great thing about manifesting, is that it really teaches people to be patient. It really teaches people to be, like, like, go with the flow, enjoy life, right? And, experience it all, like, to kind of slow down, right? That's one great lesson that I took from manifesting, right? So to kind of break it down with both stories, right? Like, one thing is that speak as if, right? Speak as if. Okay, so whatever you guys are experiencing right now, right? Like, whatever you like to experience, sorry, speak as if, right? Okay, I am going for this event, I'm doing this, right? Like, in present tense, right? Like, I'm going, right? Like, not I will go, but I am going, right? I am going to this event, right? I am looking forward to this, I am attending this event. So make it present tense, even though it can be in a, in the future, so to speak, right? So speak as if. Second thing is, like what Josephine did, like, you guys can actually make up a story in your mind, right? Like, okay, someone has to do this, but, like, again, it's a case by case basis thing. Like, if you don't have to, you don't have to. But for her, it gave her that assurance that, okay, that could be a way that the bridge of incidents can unfold. And she, assumed that the bridge of incidents just unfolded that way. But had she not, the bridge of incidents would have unfolded in another way as well, right? So, that can happen as well. So, if you want to, again, it's a case by case basis thing. If it reassures you, okay, that this is going to come from this way, by all means, assume that. But don't think, don't, go down into the rabbit hole of, okay, well, if this has to happen, then will that another thing happen? Like, for example, if the bank has to give me $1 million, how will the bank have $1 million? For example, don't go into that route, is what I'm saying, right? I hope I'm making sense there. And what I would do is go by my life as though, like, this is already a fact, right? Like, this is what she did. She told her, her friends, her colleagues and everything, okay, this is what she's gonna do, and, this is how it's going to unfold. Like, she was so certain about it, right? So, if you're not, like, certain about, if you're very uncertain about the whole situation, it's okay. Like, keep, replaying that in your mind, drill that assumption into your mind. Repetition is your best friend here, right? When I started for school as well, like, obviously it was like, oh, I'm actually leaving school. Like, obviously it was a stark contrast to where I was doing what I was doing, but regardless, like, that process, like, it didn't change, right? I kept drilling it in my mind to the point where I was so convinced that, of course, I'm leaving school, right? Obviously it happened over a span of a few months, but it was so drilled in my mind, right? So, like, repetition is your best friend here. Okay, guys, so, definitely look into that. And I would say, don't entertain anything contradictory to that. Don't entertain anything contradictory to that, right? One thing that I really liked in Josephine's story was, like, she always came at it from the perspective, like, she's the most luckiest and most, like, spoiled person or something, right? So always come at it from that perspective, that you're always blessed, that you're always, blessed with abundance, and you're always the luckiest person ever. And, you can always say you're always the spoiled person. People always treat you like a king or a queen. And, like, boost your self-confidence with, like, self-concept affirmations like that. And also you will start to see evidence for that, right? So, like, these kinds of things will help you too in your journey, right? Because that is, like, it serves as a complementary to your main desire, so to speak, right? Because if you come at it from the perspective, I'm the luckiest guy or the luckiest girl, right? And people always treat me like a king or a queen, what's going to happen is that it's going to aid you in your manifestations. For me, it was like, okay, people always treat me like a king. Everything is always favorable for me. I'm leaving school. Like, so it all came, it kind of led me to the same goal. If people treat me like a king, like, I know my lecturers really helped me through, that journey, that paperwork and everything like that, right? Everything went so smoothly. In fact, like, when the second year, first semester began, I was actually still in school. Actually, technically, officially, I was still in school, right? But I didn't go for the 1 week because I already knew the outcome. But no one said a thing. They understood. They were very accommodative of the whole thing. And, I got my email, like, on a Saturday, right? Like, I didn't even expect the campus to be active. I'm sorry about the lightning. So, yeah. And this is how, you know, like I was literally treated like a king. Everything was so favorable for me, guys, like, you know. And I always come at it from the perspective like everything, I'm really lucky, I'm really fortunate, I'm really blessed, right? These may not be things that I say out loud or even like consciously affirm, but these are things that I internally sort of, you know, comprehended throughout my journey that really, really helped me here. So I feel like, you know, again, like self-concept affirmations like this, plus, you know, like affirming for your desire will really complement it. And also, you know, speaking as if and not entertaining anything contradictory. And again, if you want to imagine something that, you know, that this is what's going to happen, that this is the scenario that actually unfolds in order for my desires to come, you can do so. Again, it's not necessary, but Josephine did it because that was convincing for her. Okay, somebody probably canceled and then I'm going to fill in their spot. Makes sense, right? Fine enough, right? So if you guys think that, fine, but you don't have to, right? If you want to get a job in an interview, right, like you can say, okay, somebody didn't come and they accept me, or they just accept me, right? Both works. So it's, again, it's a case by case basis, whatever floats your boat. I'm giving you guys options so that, you know, you guys can customize this experience, right? Because not everyone, you know, can go with the whole cookie cutter approach. So I just want to give you guys those options there. But the moral of the story is speak as if, right? Persist, right? Do not entertain anything opposite to what you want, and go by your life, go with the flow, right? Like if you feel like you have to prepare something, like let's say you want to go for a trip to, let's say, Egypt, right? Look up like information on that, look up what, you know, what kind of type of visa you need, you know, which hotel you're going to stay in, you know, what kind of a backpack you're going to carry. If you don't have the money for that, it's all right, but just start looking it up, right? Start looking it up, start, you know, preparing for it, right? And you know, like see what needs to be done and things like that, right? It doesn't hurt your chances in any way, right? So, you know, start looking it up as though you're already going. Of course I'm going to Egypt, so why wouldn't I look up this information? Because that's what you would be doing if you know you're going to Egypt for a, you know, fact, right? Like if you know that that's a certainty, that's what you would be doing, so why not start doing that, right? So that's what I kind of did as well. Like, okay, what are the kind of procedures that I had to take for a gap year, for example? I kind of looked through, okay, these are the paperworks I need and things like that. I kind of started to look through all those things, right? And you know, I really went through all my options as well, right? So it as though I am going to do that, right? Like even before, like this was months before I even like went through the entire paperwork procedure, right? So it kind of primed me in my mind, right? Like, okay, this is actually happening type of thing. So this is why I think like in secret they always say, right, like clean half of your closet for if you want to manifest someone. But that is to kind of reinforce that, I would say, right? Again, it's not a necessity. Like again, if you want to go to Egypt or something, you don't have to do all of those things. But I feel like, you know, it's a compliment, right? Like it just adds to it. Like, you know, you can have fun with it that way, I would say, right? So that's the whole, you know, point of it, right? Like it's not like, okay, if I do this, I'll get it. No, it's like you have to assume it in your mind, and then you can do these extra stuff in between to kind of like strengthen that, so to speak, right? Because not everyone like can imagine so vividly that it strengthens their assumptions just through the imagination alone. So doing things in the 3D kind of helps you, because remember what Neville says, free will ends in the mind. So whether or not you do certain things in the 3D, it doesn't matter, regardless of whether or not you look up, you know, the visa procedure for going to Egypt, for example, you're still going to be in Egypt regardless of that, right? But again, it's just to kind of like add, you know, like something to kind of strengthen your belief, so to speak, if you are not, you know, 100% good at like visualizing, for example, right? So yeah guys, so that's all from me. If this video resonated with you, be sure to like and leave a comment if you guys have any questions. Be sure to subscribe, as it goes a long way. If you want to support the channel, that's the best way to do so, is to subscribe, hit the bell notification, drop a like, because everything goes a long way here, guys. We are reaching 1,000 subscribers really soon, so you know, definitely hit subscribe, as it goes a long way for the channel and the channel's growth. If you guys have not followed me on Instagram, definitely do so. I'm also on Twitter and TikTok as well, so definitely follow those pages as I post various different contents for all different platforms as well. So guys, thank you for watching, stay safe and happy manifesting. Peace.